For over 70 years, Turkey has stood as one of NATO's most important and most unpredictable members. A bridge between continents, faiths, and civilizations, Turkey's army guards the alliance's southeastern flank, the threshold between Europe and the Middle East. But as Ankara rises as a military power in its own right, a new question is beginning to echo through strategy rooms from Brussels to Washington. Is Turkey still a loyal NATO ally, or a rival power hiding within the alliance itself? This is not a simple comparison of tanks, planes, and ships. It's a story of geopolitics, ambition, and identity, a tale of how a single nation within NATO may one day challenge the very balance of power it helped build. The roots of power, how Turkey and NATO became interlinked. Turkey joined NATO in 1952, just 3 years after the alliance was formed. It was a move born out of fear and opportunity. The early Cold War was a time of anxiety. The Soviet Union loomed just across the Black Sea, and Stalin had demanded control of the Turkish Straits, the Bosporus and Dardanelles, the narrow arteries connecting the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. For NATO, Turkey was the perfect buffer. A large, militarized nation controlling one of the most strategic choke points on Earth. For Turkey, NATO was insurance, a shield against Soviet aggression and a ticket to Western legitimacy. But 7 decades later, the dynamic has shifted. Turkey no longer needs NATO to define its security. Now, NATO needs Turkey to contain Russia, to police the Middle East, and to manage migration and instability. In that reversal lies the foundation of a new rivalry. Turkey's military power, the regional giant. The Turkish Armed Forces, TSK, are among the largest and most capable in the alliance. With over 440,000 active personnel and more than 200,000 reserves, Turkey fields the second-largest standing army in NATO, smaller only than the United States. But unlike most European armies, which are heavily dependent on NATO support, Turkey maintains a self-sufficient command structure. It has its own doctrine, its own industry, and its own independent operational capacity. The army. The backbone of the TSK remains its Land Forces Command, a modern, mechanized force built for both conventional warfare and counterinsurgency. It operates over 2,500 tanks, including upgraded Leopard 2A4S, M60T Sabras, and indigenously modified versions of American hardware. But the future lies in the Altay main battle tank, Turkey's homegrown answer to the Abrams and Leopard. Built with hybrid NATO and South Korean technology, the Altay symbolizes Ankara's intent to fight without reliance on foreign suppliers. The Air Force. Turkey's Air Force, though strained by political purges after the 2016 coup attempt, remains formidable. It operates around 240 F-16 Fighting Falcons, produced under license domestically, along with an advanced network of AWACS, tanker aircraft, and UAVs. The crown jewel of Turkish aviation, however, is not American, it's indigenous. The Bayraktar TB2 and Akinci drones have turned Turkey into a global drone superpower. From Libya to Nagorno-Karabakh to Ukraine, Turkish drones have rewritten modern warfare. They are cheap, versatile, and battle-proven, and they've made Turkey a defense exporter to dozens of nations, including NATO members themselves. Meanwhile, the TFX-Can stealth fighter, Turkey's ambitious fifth-generation project, aims to give Ankara its own replacement for the F-35, from which it was expelled after purchasing Russian S-400 air defense systems. The Navy. Turkey's Navy has also evolved from a coastal defense force into a blue water fleet. At the heart of this modernization is the TCG Anadolu, an amphibious assault ship capable of carrying helicopters and drones, making Turkey the first nation in the world to operate a drone carrier. Complementing it are the Milgem-class corvettes, I-class frigates, and plans for new submarines under German and indigenous production lines. Together, these platforms form the maritime wing of Turkey's blue homeland, Mavi Vatan doctrine, a grand strategy to project power across the Aegean, Eastern Mediterranean, and beyond. NATO's military power, the global colossus. Now contrast that with NATO itself, a behemoth spanning 32 member states, over 3 million troops, and defense spending exceeding $1.3 trillion annually. The alliance is anchored by the United States, which alone accounts for 70% of NATO's total military capacity. Behind it stand the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, and Poland, each contributing advanced fighter fleets, nuclear arsenals, and global naval assets. NATO commands more than 20,000 tanks, over 4,000 combat aircraft, and a near-global satellite and logistics network. It can strike anywhere on Earth within hours. But NATO's strength is also its weakness. It is vast, bureaucratic, and politically divided. Decisions require consensus among dozens of governments, many of whom have different threat perceptions and domestic agendas. Turkey, by contrast, acts unilaterally. When Ankara decides to intervene, in Syria, Iraq, or Libya, it moves within days. NATO moves within months. In a sense, Turkey's speed and singular willpower have made it one of the alliance's most active combatants, even when those actions contradict NATO's diplomatic objectives. Strategic comparison: firepower versus independence. In pure numbers, NATO dwarfs Turkey. The alliance's firepower is overwhelming. Thousands of advanced aircraft, including F-22s, F-35s, and Eurofighters. Dozens of nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers. Global logistics chains that can sustain wars continents away. But Turkey compensates through strategic independence and regional control. While NATO's forces are dispersed across Europe and North America, Turkey's are concentrated around its immediate front lines: the Middle East, the Caucasus, and the Mediterranean. It doesn't have to move across oceans to defend its interests. Its battles are right on its borders. Turkey also has a major geostrategic advantage: geography itself. It controls the Bosporus and Dardanelles, giving it leverage over NATO's access to the Black Sea, and by extension, over Russia's naval movement. In any scenario involving the Black Sea, Ukraine, or the Caucasus, Turkey's position is pivotal. Without Turkish cooperation, NATO's naval operations there are severely limited. That single geographic reality gives Ankara more power than many of NATO's European heavyweights combined. The doctrinal divide: NATO's collective defense versus Turkey's national strategy. NATO's core philosophy is collective defense. An attack on one is an attack on all. It prioritizes deterrence through unity, nuclear sharing, and multilateral coordination. Turkey, on the other hand, follows a doctrine of strategic autonomy. It does not wait for permission to act. In Syria, Turkish forces crossed the border multiple times without NATO's sanction. In Libya, they intervened to support the UN-backed government while NATO states were divided. In the Caucasus, Turkey backed Azerbaijan militarily, tipping the balance in the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. Each of these moves strengthened Turkey's influence and highlighted NATO's paralysis. Turkey's message is clear: we will defend our interests, with or without you. This divergence reveals the deeper truth. While NATO projects power outward, Turkey projects power inward, shaping its immediate sphere of influence into something resembling an empire's return. Air dominance: Turkey's dilemma within the alliance. If there is one area where the Turkey-NATO comparison becomes particularly complex, it's the skies. As a NATO member, Turkey was once integrated into the alliance's shared air defense and command structure. It hosted critical radar installations, air bases, and nuclear storage sites. But the S-400 purchase from Russia in 2019 shattered that trust. NATO viewed it as a betrayal, a compromise of security protocols that could allow Moscow to study NATO aircraft signatures. Turkey, however, saw it as insurance, an independent defense capability that no alliance could veto. This was more than a procurement deal, it was a declaration of independence. Ankara was saying, we will decide how we defend our skies, not Washington, not Brussels. The result was Turkey's removal from the F-35 program, pushing it to double down on domestic innovation. The TFX Kaan Hurjet trainer and a Kinsi drone bomber are now not just military projects, but national symbols, a declaration that Turkey will never again rely on others for its air sovereignty. While NATO's air power is far superior technologically, Turkey's doctrine of hybrid integration, blending drones, EW, and manned fighters, gives it a unique, adaptive edge in asymmetric warfare. The Mediterranean front, where interests collide. The Eastern Mediterranean is where the quiet tension between Turkey and NATO becomes visible. France, Greece, and Cyprus, all NATO or EU members, have clashed repeatedly with Turkey over maritime borders and energy exploration rights. Turkey's Blue Homeland doctrine envisions control of vast maritime zones rich in gas fields and trade routes. It is a vision that directly challenges NATO allies Greece and France. In 2020, Turkish and French warships shadowed each other near Cyprus, both flying the same alliance flag, a surreal image of how fractured NATO's internal unity has become. In that confrontation, Turkey's indigenous naval production, drone coverage, and Aegean-based network gave it an upper hand regionally, even if NATO as a whole could outgun it globally. The message from Ankara was unmistakable. NATO may be an alliance, but Turkey is a power. Economic and industrial strength, the hidden factor. Behind every army is an economy. NATO's combined GDP exceeds $50 trillion, by far the largest economic bloc in history. It can sustain long wars, deploy across continents, and replenish losses effortlessly. Turkey's economy, by comparison, stands around $1.1 trillion PPP adjusted. Large for its region but modest on the global stage. Yet it has achieved something few others have: a self-sustaining defense industry. Today, over 70% of Turkish defense procurement is domestic. From drones and ships to missiles and armored vehicles, Turkey produces what it fights with. Companies like Aselsan, Roketsan, and Baykar are now global names, exporting to 40-plus countries. This industrial independence means Turkey is shielded from embargoes that often cripple smaller NATO states. It also gives Turkey something NATO lacks: strategic autonomy within interdependence. The political dimension: an ally, a rival, or a future leader. NATO was designed for a Cold War world, a Western club bound by ideology. But Turkey is not Western, it's Eurasian. It straddles cultures and politics in ways the alliance can neither fully embrace nor ignore. Ankara sees NATO as a tool, not a master. It uses the alliance to expand its influence, gain access to intelligence, and deter adversaries, while simultaneously pursuing its own foreign policy independent of NATO's control. Turkey is not the alliance's rebel, it's its wild card, a nation capable of tipping the balance between East and West. Its diplomacy with Russia, energy ties with Azerbaijan, and outreach to Central Asia all demonstrate an ambition beyond the alliance's comfort zone. In a way, Turkey represents what NATO secretly fears and openly needs: a power that can act without hesitation where bureaucracies would stall. Scenario analysis: if Turkey stood alone. Hypothetically, if Turkey were to face NATO in conflict, an unlikely but often speculated scenario, the outcome would be uneven but instructive. NATO would dominate in long-range power projection, strategic bombing, and naval control. Turkey would struggle to match the alliance's firepower. But the war would not be fought on equal terms. Turkey's advantage in terrain, proximity, and asymmetric warfare would make any invasion or occupation costly beyond reason. Ankara's A2/AD systems, electronic warfare assets, and hardened bases in Anatolia could turn the country into a fortress. NATO could win the air but not the ground. It could strike but not occupy. And in the end, that is what makes Turkey unique within the alliance. It may not be NATO's equal in scale, but it is NATO-proof in will. The alliance and the eagle. Turkey stands as both shield and sword, part of NATO yet apart from it. It is the alliance's front line, its bridge, and its reminder that alliances are only as strong as the nations that believe in them. For NATO, Turkey is indispensable. For Turkey, NATO is optional. As the world shifts toward multipolarity, the real question is no longer whether Turkey needs NATO, but whether NATO can survive without Turkey. Because behind every meeting in Brussels, behind every joint exercise and diplomatic statement, there lies a simple, unspoken truth. The alliance may have power, but Turkey has purpose. And in the 21st century, purpose might just be the deadliest weapon of all.